Needless to say, it has been a poor day on Twitter today. Announced initially by Fabrizio Romano that Newcastle submitting a bid for Bruno Guimaraes for about 40 million euros. Proposal was made last night, and it appears to be, according to Jay Globo, I don't know how to pronounce that, my apologies, has apparently accepted the offer from Newcastle United, of all things, for 40 million euros. And it looks like Lyon are accepting the fact that he will be going away in January. I'd like to remind us that it is January 25th, and there are 6 days left in the window, which is ridiculous in and of itself. But this is the latest news as of today. Now, that is to be said that this is not the whole story. Part of the reason that this is of concerning is the Newcastle United board and owners are likely to offer him 4 times the salary that he is earning at Lyon, which, one, is not entirely surprising. Our wage structure is difficult in the best of times. But with the amount of money that they have, this would be a big player for them to get. I'm going to touch on why I disagree with that in a second. Obviously, that might come off as coping, but we'll talk about that after we get through all the kind of the main transfer news. However, a lot of the information we're getting from Hugo, this is he is from L'Equipe, the paper here in France. So a lot of these people, a lot of these news sources, this is a Portuguese account, I think, or Brazilian Portuguese, same thing, but I think it operates out of Brazil. But it looks like we have not yet responded. I mean, we've heard this one before as Lyon supporters. Usually means the offer accepting is right around the corner. Looks like we're probably going to hear news on this tomorrow, whether it's officially accepted. Once L'Equipe reported, I would imagine that to be true. And it looks like, despite reports out of Brazil, it looks like they have not truly accepted the offer yet, and it is still in the hands of Olas, Ponceau, and Cheyrou, I guess. Though I would imagine Olas and Ponceau are the only players involved at the club who are going to be making this decision. Now, let's take a look before we get into the Lyon perspective from the Newcastle perspective. What does this mean for Newcastle? I think this is one of those signings that might be too soon. I think Bruno Guimaraes is probably one of our best players all season, and it would be an absolute heist for Newcastle to get him on a permanent deal. The issue that I think that this raises for Newcastle is it doesn't solve their defensive issues. He's a very, very solid midfielder, and he does, defend well. And he does do a good job holding up the ball and controlling the ball in midfield. But, man, with Lascelles and players like Kieran Clark behind him, there are way bigger issues that I would be concerned from a Newcastle perspective than going for Bruno Guimaraes. I think he would be a great signing for next season for them. If they stay up, they're able to bring in a defender and solidify from there. He'd be a great cornerstone to a midfield project there. The way I look at it, I feel like Botman would have been a better player to go all in for. Not that they had to go all in for Bruno. We accepted the first offer, which is likely to be accepting the first offer. And you could feel like that's probably why that this deal is going to go through. Botman wasn't able to get done mainly because of the money. It felt like Newcastle wasn't going to go all the way to meet Lille's demands to pay the transfer fee for Sven Botman, who I think would have honestly probably kept them up if he had come. They probably still need another defender, but Botman would have been a huge heist into keeping them in the first division there in England. But I think this is one of the risky moves you make as Newcastle, I think, this season, in that I think he definitely helps you stay up, but I think you're definitely better off spending in your defense to stay up in the division. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. But once again, I think this is still a really good step forward for them staying in the Premier League. For Bruno Guimaraes' perspective, this is a very risky move for the reasons I just highlighted. You're not guaranteed to stay up with Newcastle. Your influence on the team, I think, to stay up is pretty high, but the weaknesses in that Newcastle team are not what you're in there to replace. You still have to defend with Lascelles. You still have to defend with Manquillo, I guess, is replaced by Trippier. Now you still have like Kieran Clark. Like you have so many poor defenders in that team. Matt Ritchie's been even playing. Like there's so much going wrong at that team defensively behind you that you might not have the protection to influence the game like you do at Lyon. That's not to say next season that this wouldn't make sense if they bring in a Sven Botman. I forget the Monaco defender they were going after, but they're looking at a lot of defensive options. Once those players come in and you can be the base of that midfield with that solid back four behind you, then this move starts to make sense as a project for Newcastle based on all the money they have and the prospect they have of moving to the top of the Premier League. From a Lyon perspective, this is completely unacceptable on so many fronts. It's difficult to put into words how unacceptable of a move it is to accept a transfer offer for Bruno Guimaraes 6 days left in the window, or even at all in January. First off, we are fighting to stay in European competition. If you look at the table, I'll put it on screen now. We are in a pretty poor position in the table, but a lot of teams have been having really, really poor seasons. And we have, been playing some pretty, negative football recently, to be fair. But that opportunity to move up the table, is showing itself. We've gotten 7 out of 9 points to start 2022. And we're going into a very difficult part of our schedule with both basically everybody we're playing not really being in full form right now. And if we can take advantage of that, play, maybe a more pragmatic style than we want to, and take a lot of those points there, we are right back in the thick of things for the Europa League spots. Not to mention, we have a legitimate chance at a European Cup this season. It is a Europa League, albeit, but we are the betting odds 4th favorite at this point. With the team we have currently, we should likely be making a semifinal appearance and pushing a team like Barcelona, like Dortmund, like potentially Napoli, certainly teams like West Ham. We should definitely be giving them very close ties in the later stages of the tournament and potentially be winning a European Cup this year. Selling Bruno Guimaraes at this point basically means that we have no way of doing that. At midfield, that basically leads us to having to play Thiago Mendes, who has truthfully been a disaster basically almost any game he has played there. In the Europa League, he has been acceptable against teams like Brøndby, but otherwise unacceptable season from him, and he should have been gone in the summer. We weren't able to find a suitable offer for him, and now it looks like he is on his way to being a starter again. I think at that point, we basically now have to find a new central midfielder if we sell Bruno. And at this point, it won't be able to replace the impact he had. And 2, I don't even know if there is even the opportunity for us to do that at this point. It's been made clear by the board that there is going to be no incomings in the transfer window this month. And that means we're basically relegated to playing Thiago Mendes and Caqueret in the midfield. Paqueta likely joins them as a 3 at some point. But if we continue to play the 3-4-3 that we have been playing, then those are the only 2 real players we have in that position. We have Habib Keita who could play there. He played, well at times in the Europa League, but that is the Europa League in games that, not necessarily matter, in games that we were dominating anyway. But otherwise, who else plays in the central midfield? Jeff Van Adelaide is coming back from injury, but he is, more likely going to be further forward and, play potentially a wide position on the right. He's kind of a player who would operate best in front in a midfield 3, a little further forward. Not in a midfield 2 in a 3-4-3, realistically. At the end of the day, I think that this move doesn't really make sense for Bruno Guimaraes to make, and it really, really doesn't make sense for Lyon to make. And I think a lot of the reaction you've seen on Twitter from Lyon supporters showing massive discontent, and I think there's been a lot of discontent within the supporter base towards Aulas specifically for the Juninho, leaving, as well as the apparent, desire for all of these players who were signed under Juninho to be seen out of the club. That doesn't even mention the fact that Aouar has now got a new agent and is likely to leave in the summer as well. There's expected to be a lot of turnover at this club in the summer, and the second half of the season is crucial to putting us in a situation where we can thrive next season. And this move right here, I think, would put us so far behind the 8 ball that I don't know how we could recover in the near future unless we were to bring in someone of equal or better quality, which I don't even know if we will bring in anybody at all at this point. We failed with Asmund, we failed with Onana, we failed with so many players in the past that I have no faith in the board to get it right this time.